Good morning, dear learners. Welcome to teaching learning session of sociology. Today we'll discuss about kinship and decent approach. Kinship, as we all know, that kinship is a universal feature of human culture. You will find this feature in each and every society, and this kinship served as a major organizing principle of human societies. It can be defined as a principle by which individuals or group of individuals are organized into social group. How you can organize an individual into social group? That is because of kinship. Because of kinship, you can organize individual or individuals into social group categories and by means of kinship terminology. In anthropology, the study of kinship has existed ever since the mid to late 1800s when the L. Morgan and others invented the study of kinship. So now it's clear that L. Morgan is the father of study of kinship. He invented the study of kinship and he worked on kinship. There are types of kinship, right? In Western society, a man's kin and affine are confined to few close relatives for a practical purpose. In Western societies, your close relatives are known as your kins. This is for the practical purpose so that it could not create a chaos. Whereas in non-Western societies, kinship relation is broad and inclusive of geographical and other factors. Like in our society, the kinship is not related to a few close relatives, right? It is broader and it includes the geographical and other factors. But despite of this variance, some familial and affinity links are culturally recognized in every civilization. Now, types of kinship, right? There are types of kinship. One is consanguineous, and another is affine kinship. Consanguineous kinship refers to the blood relationship. That kinship that exists because of the blood, that is known as consanguineous relationship or the kinship. The consanguineous kins are the blood relatives, those between the parents and their children. They are related because of their blood by their blood, right? So that the parents and children and the siblings, they are the consanguineous kins. Affine relations refers to the relation formed from the marriage alliance. Right? There are certain relations because of blood. When we are related by blood, siblings, parents, children, right? They are related by blood, right? So those are known as consanguineous kin. Now, apart from this, there are the relationships because of marriage, and the relationships formed because of the marriage, those relations are known as affine relations, right? Or affine kinship. Affine kinship is thus based on the marriage, like the relationship between the husband and wife. Not only the husband and wife, but the relatives of both families are also affine relatives, like father, mother, sister, brother-in-laws, all are affine relatives, right? Now, next type of kinship is agnetic and cognatic. The term agnetic means the relationship by male links exclusively, regardless of sex of ego. An agnet are person related to patrilineal descent. That is the kin who trace their relationship by descent through the male only from a common ancestor. That is, the descent from the male ancestors, right? They are known as agnetic relations or agnetic kins. Cognatic refers to bilateral, right? The closest of all cognatic relationship is between the children of same father and mother. Cognatic is a bilateral or the consanguineal kinsman or a kinswoman. The closest of all cognatic relation is between the children of the same father and mother. Lineal and collateral kinship. A lineal kin is a person who is related by a direct line of descent, such as father, father's father, son, and son's son. Right? That is the lineal relationship or lineal kinship. A lineal kin is a person who is related by a direct line of descent. That is father, father's father's son, son's son. Right? And a collateral kin is a person who is related indirectly through the mediation of another relative. They are relative, but they are related because of the mediation of another relative, such as father's brother, mother's sister, that is uncle, aunt, cousins, etc. are collateral kins. Right? Right? They are related, but they are indirectly related because of mediation of another relative. Your father's brother is related to you because of your father. Your sister's brother is related to you because of sorry, uh, your mother's brother is related to you, or your mother's sister is related to you because of your mother. They are known as the collateral kins. Now, the descendants of lineal kins are called the collateral kins. That is, the father's brother is a lineal, while father's brother's son is known as collateral. Right? Right? So, descendants of lineal kins are called collateral kin. Descendant of lineal kins are known as collateral kins. You are related to them because of some mediation. Right? Kinship usage and behavior. Kinship usage refers to the pattern of behavior between kins in society. It establishes what constitutes proper and acceptable role relationship. Right? So, why kinship? What is the usage of kinship? It establishes a proper and acceptable role of relationships. It regulates, and because of this acceptable and role relationship, it regulates the social life. Some example of kinship uses are relationship of avoidance and joking, and technonomy, evinculate, imitate, and covet. We'll discuss all these. Avoidance and joking relationship. What is avoidance and joking relationship? There are certain cultural norms. See, in society, there are certain restrictions on few relations. Right? Why this is like that? Just to maintain, just to regulate the social life. Right? And so these relations, avoidance relationships, are those relationships which, according to the cultural norm, whereby kins have to remain away from each other. Right? And maintain a restriction in behavior pattern while interacting with each other. Right? So these are known as the avoidance relationship. That is, it could be a relationship, say, between a father-in-law and a daughter-in-law. Right? So these are known as the avoidance relationship. That it is according, it varies from culture to culture. Right? That is, the kids have to remain away from each other and maintain a restriction in their behavior pattern while interacting with each other. While joking relationship is exact opposite to avoidance relationship. In contrast to avoiding face-to-face interaction, they have the privileges to be at ease with each other. Joking relationship can be seen in both tribal and Hindu cultures. Joking relationship, that is the relationship between the sister-in-law and brother-in-law. Right? So joking relationship is opposite to avoidance relationship. In avoidance relationship, there are certain restriction on the behavior pattern while kins are interacting with each other, and while in joking relationship, the kins can be at ease with each other. Right? And joking partnership or the relationship is exact opposite to avoidance relationship. Evinculate and imitate. Kinship uses observed between the children of mother's brother and his sister in many matrilineal societies. In this society, the maternal uncle takes on many of the responsibilities of the father. His nephew and niece are still under his command as they are inheritors of his possessions. Avunculate is a practice found among the Torbirander Islander of Melanesia and Fijians, African tribes and Nayars of South Indian. So avunculate is that is the where the mother's brothers take many of the responsibilities of the father, and his nephews and nieces are still under his command, and they inherit the properties of their uncle or mom, right? It is a kinship that is observed between the children of mother's brother, right, and his sister. Another form of kinship which is common among patrilineal people is emitate, while avunculate is common among the society in matrilineal society. While in patrilineal society, we observe emitate type of relationship or kinship. Here, the sister of father is treated with a great respect and given top priority. She is more than a mother to her niece and nephews, and she wields influence over him in a variety of situations. In actuality, it is a social mechanism that prevents the father sisters from being neglected, particularly when they are ejected from their in-laws' home. This form of kinship uses is seen in Polynesian, Tonga, Toda of South India, and other communities. So, avunculate, where the mother's brother has influence on the children and has a great respect, and in imitate society, the father sister has given the top priority and is treated with the great respect, right? Avunculate is found in matrilineal society, and imitate is found in patrilineal society. Kuwait. What is Kuwait? Kuwait is another unusual application of kinship between husband and wife, and is found among the Toda and Khasi communities. Right? It is a application between husband and a wife, and found in Toda and Khasi communities. In these communities, when a man's wife give birth to a child, the husband is forced to observe or forced to live a life of uh, austerity along with his wife. He must adhere to the stringent diet and obey a variety of taboos. This is Kuwait. Kuwait is that when a husband observe in certain situation, when a husband observes all the similar things or perform the similar things or the similar actions which his wife is supposed to, right? Actually, in case of wife's delivery, right, there are certain taboos or there which wife is supposed to follow. At the same time, the husband is supposed to follow those rules which wife is supposed to follow. This is Kuwait, right? Then technonomy. Another is technonomy. The anthropologist E Taylor coined the term technonomy, which was derived from a Greek word and was first used in anthropology. In this type of kinship uses, the kin is not directly referred but is referred to through another kin. The kin serve as a point of contact between two kins. For example, in traditional Hindu family, the wife does not mention her husband's name. She communicates with him via her son or daughter. He is referred to by her as the Gudu's or Tanu's father, by the father of by the name of the children's father, right? So technonomy is that the kinship uses, the kin is not directly referred, right? It is not directly referred but referred to through another kin. You cannot refer that kin directly, but you can refer to that kin through another kin. Example, in Hindus family, even now, right, the wife communicates with her husband via her son or daughter, and he is referred to as ex father or wise father, right? Functions of kinships. What are the functions of kinship? Why is it required? First function is group formation, right? The foremost and the primary function of kinship is primitive society was the group formation. The groups formed on the basis of kinship ties become relevant for determining the rules of inheritance, right? Group formation, first and foremost function is group formation. Why group is required? It is required for the rules of inheritance. Who will inherit all the properties? For instance, in patrilineal society, the agnatic member have the rights to inheritance and the succession. Agnatic means those who are related to each other through patrilineal line, right? In patrilineal society, the agnates are the agnates have the rights to of inheritance and successions. Kin groups also regulate the marriage behavior by defining the marriage rules like exogamy and endogamy. We discussed about marriage rules, exogamy, endogamy in detail in our previous lectures. Right. So why kinship is required to form the group? Why group is required? So that there could be rules of inheritance and successions, right? And actually kin group regulates the marriage behavior because it defines the rules of exogamy and endogamy. Next function is regulation of social structure. Kinship uses regulates the kinship role relationship, such as how one kinsman should act in the presence of another and what kinsman owes to another. So it forms a structure. Kinship functions as regularizer of social life and maintain the social system unity. Why this social structure is required? To maintain the social order, right? Social structure is required to maintain the social order, to regularize the social life, and to maintain the social systems unity, right? Now, kinship and rituals. The kinship relationships determine the participants of kin in life cycle rituals, especially the cradle ceremony, the marriage ceremony, the death ceremony. In many society, the life cycle rituals indicates the importance of certain kin. For example, in patrilineal society, during the naming ceremony, the newborn's name must be given by the father's sister. So kinship is required for this rituals, life cycle rituals, because in a patrilineal society, right, the naming ceremony, the newborn's name must be given by the father's sister. During marriages of daughters, specific rites and ritual must be conducted by the mother's brother. So, in simple society, kinship are regulated political life. The position of chief was hereditary. Segmentary lineage function was to maintain law and order in stateless society, as found in New Society. Evan Pritchard said that with the formation of nation state, the political function of kinship become institutionalized, caste class identified become flexible, the adherence to marriage rules has been affected, and despite of these changes, kinship system does remain an integral and universal in all societies, right? So because of these to form the groups, we need a kinship system. Why groups are required? Because it defines the rule of inheritance and the succession. To maintain the social structure, kinship is required. Why a social structure is required? To maintain the social order. It defines the rules of marriage, right? And perform the kinship to maintain to perform the life cycle rituals, kinship is required, right? Descent in kinship studies. In anthropology, kinship has been used to refer as a network of genealogical relationship and the social ties. Genealogical means those who are related to genes, those who are related to each other through blood, right? So in anthropology, kins are referred to the network of people who are related either through blood or through social ties. Through social ties could be because of the marriage, affinal relationship. A descent group include those individuals who are descendant from the ancestor in a particular way, right? So what is descent group is includes those individual who are descendant from the ancestors in a particular way, those who are our ancestor and descendant from the ancestor in a particular way. Thus two individuals who are regarded as a kin may be related to each other in one or related to one or other of the two ways. One is descendant from the other, or both are descendant from the common ancestor, right? So descendant from the common ancestor or descendant from one or both ancestors. Meaning and concept of descent. Descent has can be defined as a relationship defined by the connection to an ancestor through a culturally recognized sequence of parent child link. What is descent? Descent is defined as a relationship by a connection to an ancestor. It is defined as a connection to an ancestor. How we can define a connection to an ancestor? Through a culturally recognized sequence of parent child link. Parent child link. When we define a parent child link, culturally recognized see, important thing is culturally recognized parent child link, when there is a connection between the people, right? Because of the parent child culturally defined parent child link, then we call it as a descent. Okay? So descent has been defined as a relationship by connection to an ancestor through a culturally recognized sequence of parent child links. In anthropology, various terms line, lineal, lineage are used synonymously with the term descent, right? So descent, lineal, lineage, or line, right? All these are synonyms. These terms have been used in kinship studies in four different ways. First is to denote corporate descent group, that is a group united for economic or political purpose. Second is to denote the chosen line of inheritance and succession, who will inherit and succeed, right? To refer to type of kinship terminology. And regardless of which line, matrilineal or patrilineal or both, are chosen for the above three purposes. Lineal relatives refers to one ascendant or descendant. Despite of the lines, whether it's a matrilineal line, whether it's a patrilineal line, or whether it's a both, they are chosen for above three purposes, right? The lineal relatives refers to the one ascendants or descendants. Lineal relatives are those who belongs to the same ancestral stock in a direct line of descent. When you belong to the same ancestral group, right, in the direct line of descent, right? Opposed to lineal relative are the collateral, who belongs to some ancestral stock but not in a direct line of descent, right? But not in a direct line of descent. Morgan defined descent as a cultural rule which affiliates the individual with a particular selected group of kinsmen for certain social purpose, such as mutual assistance or regulation of marriage. So it totally depends on the cultural rules how you define your descent. The structural functionalist defined descent as process regulating the recruitment of members into social group either through father or mothers. Type of descent, unilineal. This traces a descent only through a single line of ancestor, male or female. Either you can traces your descent through a male line or the female line, patrilineal or matrilineal. Right? Both male and females are member of a unilineal family, but the descent links are only recognized through the relative of one gender. Both males and females are member of unilineal family. If either you are a male or a female, you are a member of a unilineal family. But descent links are only recognized through relatives of one gender, either through mother's side or through the female side. The two basic form of unilineal descent are referred to as patrilineal or matrilineal. That is patrilineal, tracing descent through the male or the father line. When you trace your descent, when you follow the ancestral line of your father or the male side, in patrilineal society we usually do this, then that is known as patrilineal descent, right? Or when you trace the descent through the female side or the mother side, then that is known as matrilineal descent, right? Double descent is traced through both the patrilineal and matrilineal group, with attendant rights and obligation, but assigned to each a different set of expectations. Right? So there could be double descent when you trace your descent, when descent has been traced from the both the patrilineal and the matrilineal groups. Cognatic. The system of descent in which child is recognized as a descendant equally of both the father and mother. Right? It is also referred to as a bilateral or a bilineal descent system. There is no unilineal group can be formed, but group structure can be cognatic. That is the group of a kin person on the father's and mother's side. Members can be acquired through either father or mother. This is cognatic. Double descent is when you trace your descent from both the patrilineal and matrilineal descent. Cognatic is in this system of descent in which child is recognized as a descendant equally of both father and mother. Descendant equally of both father and mother. Right? So it is also referred to as a bilateral or a bilineal descent system. That you are descendant of your father as well as of the mother, and this is known as the bilateral or bilineal descent system. Here, no unilineal group can be formed, but the group structure can be cognatic. That is the group of a kin persons on the father's and the mother's sides. So, that is the group of a kin persons from both these sides, right? Members can be acquired through either the father or the mother. Then, ambilineal. Patrilineal and matrilineal principle are both operates at the societal level, but at the level of the individual, various rules or choices define a person as belonging to either the mother's or a father's group. Right? So, at the level of the individual, various levels or choices defines a person belonging either to a mother's or a father's group. So, it's personal choice. Next is clan. A lineage is exogamous. This means that a boy and a girl of a same lineage cannot marry. This defines whom you cannot marry. Clan, right? So it is clan is an exogamous unit. That a boy of a same clan and a girl of a same clan or the lineage cannot marry. The large exogamous category is called clan. Right? So, exogamous is where it defines the rules whom one cannot marry. Right? So, it is exogamous. So, exogamous, a large exogamous, when there is a large exogamous category, then it is known as clan, that you cannot marry this because of the same lineage or the descent. Among Hindus, this category is known as Gotra. Right? In You cannot marry in Hindus, one cannot marry within the same Gotra. Each person of a high caste among Hindu belongs to a clan of his or her father and cannot marry within the clan or a Gotra. One usually knows about the common ancestor of lineage members as an actual person. But common ancestor of clan is generally a mythological figure, right? There are certain clans like Kashyap is a clan, and there are other clans. Those who belongs to a Kashyap clan cannot marry each other, right? So what is the clan? They have a common ancestor, and the common ancestor of clan is generally a mythological figure, right? Each person in the Hindus of higher caste among Hindus belong to a clan of his father and cannot marry within the clan or the Gotra, right? In rural areas, often the members of the lineage live in the close proximity and therefore have a greater occasion of cooperation or conflict. Common interest or action do not characterize the relationship among the clan members because they are usually scattered over the large territory and their relationships are often quite remote. These relationships assuming significance only in the context of marriage. These relationship we consider these relationship only in the case of marriage. Otherwise, these the characteristic of relationship among the class member among the class is of no interest or action, right? These relationship assuming a significance only in context of a marriage. Lineage is a descent group traced through only one of the parent, either father or mother, patrilineage or matrilineage. When you trace your lineage, when you trace your descent group either through male side, father side, or the mother side, all member of the lineage trace their common ancestor to a single person. Lineage are normally corporate, meaning to their member exercises a right in common and are subject to obligations collectively. Fratry and moiety notes. When, due to any of the reason, many lineage get joined as a bigger group, then such group is called fratry. Right? When many of the lineages get joined together because of any of the reason, then that is known as fratry. Moiety, all lineage of a tribe, when divided into two fratries, then the social structure so formed is called the dual organization, and every fratries among this is called a moiety. So fratries, when many lineage group together to form a bigger group, right? Then that is known as a fratry. And in tribes, when we divide the two fratries, when we divide it into two fratries, right? That the lineage, all the lineage of the tribe, all the lineages are divided into two groups, right? Two fratries, right? Then the social structure so formed is called dual organization. Now only we have two fratries, two groups, and every fratries among this is called moiety. Then one fratry, then each and every fratry is known as moiety. Gotra. Gotra refers to the lineage segment within the Indian caste that prohibits intermarrying by virtue of members' descent from the common mythological ancestor, an important factor of determining possible Hindu marriage alliance. What is Gotra or a clan? Gotra refers to the lineage system. Lineage system is what Gotra is when one belongs to a common lineage. When they have, when people, when a group of a people have a same ancestor, right? Same common mythological ancestor, and when they are descendants of the same common mythological ancestor, then they form a lineage, and they belong to a common gotra, right? And that in gotra that gotra refers to the lineage segment, and gotra in Indian caste, gotra prohibits intermarrying, right? So you cannot marry a boy and a girl of a same gotra cannot marry each other, because they are the descendant of the common ancestor, right? Gotra originally referred to the seven lineage segments of Brahmins, who traces their derivation from the seven ancient seers. So Gotra, actually there are the seven Gotras in according to Hindu mythology, right? So there are the seven lineage segment of the Brahmins, and who traces their derivation from derivation from the ancestor seers. Seven Gotras are Atri, Bharadwaj, Bhrigu, Gautama, Kashyapa, Vasishtha, and Vishwamitra. So these are the seven ancestral lineage. So these are the seven Gotras, and the boy and a girl of a same Gotra, that is boy and a girl who belongs to the same Gotra, so suppose Atri, they cannot marry each other, right? Same people that the Bharadwaja cannot marry in the same Gotra. An eighth Gotra was added early on the Agastya, named after the intimately linked up with the spread Vedic Hinduism in southern India. Decent approach in kinship studies. Kinship is important to person and community's well-being because it forms a group, right? It describes the inheritance and succession rules. It describes the rules of marriage. It is responsible for the social structure and the social order. So kinship is important for a person as well as for the community's well-being, because the different society defines kinship differently. They also set the rules governing the kinship, which are sometimes legally defined and sometimes implied. Anthropologists in 19th century, in an attempt to understand the constitution of a society, gave the theory of descent as a principle of organizing the social structure. So let us discuss this evolution of our descent approach, how this approach has been evolved. The functionalist anthropologist in the early stages of emergence of the discipline of anthropology were in search of the answer to question what integrates society. The anthropologist wanted to know what are the factors which are responsible for the integration of the society. As the primitive societies studied by anthropologists were seen as a kinship based integration of the social structure was located in the kinship system. So, in primitive society, anthropologists studied, and according the anthropologists studied the primitive society, and according to them, that kinship is the basis of integration of the society in primitive society, according to anthropologists. As a group were seen as a segment of a society. They would be integrated only if the principle of kinship organization were unilinear. What they found as a group, the group was seen as a segment of the society, and they would integrate only if the principle of kinship organization were unilinear. For Radcliffe Brown, only group formed on the basis of unilinear descent did not overlap. Thus, the understanding of unilinear, a descent group, and essential for formation and continuity of social structure. So, according to Redcliffe Brown, the group formed on the basis of the unilineal descent, either through mother or father's side, they did not overlap. And understanding of this unilineal descent group is an essential for formation and continuity of the social structure. Just to maintain the social order, it is required. Most anthropological literature during this period were concerned with societies whose social structure rested on the unilineal descent, and thus creating an impression that descent was an organizing principle. So, according to the early anthropologists, the kinship or the descent was the organizing principle, or was the principle responsible for the integration of the society. The British anthropologists, unlike their predecessors, were not interested in evolution of the society. They were more concerned with constitution of the structure and interrelationship between different parts. Like earlier anthropologists were more interested about knowing about the evolution of the societies. Later on, the anthropologists were not interested in the evolution of the society, but they wanted to know what constitutes the society. They were concerned with the constitution of the structure. What constitutes the structure of the society, and they wanted to know the interrelationship between the different parts of the society, the different structures of the society. So, therefore, the society was viewed as having a systematic order resulting due to their interrelationship and dependence on the different parts, right? So, they wanted to know what constitutes the structure and what is the relationship between the different parts. So, they viewed the society having a systematic order because of the interrelationship and interdependence of the different parts of the society on each other, right? On the basis of ethnographic studies, these anthropologists arrived at the understanding of residence, territory, and descent coexisted in the same society. So, these residence territory or the descent approach is one could be the factors responsible for the social integration or the social structure of the society. This formed the base of the descent theory that supports the idea of agnate. Male members from the same line of descent have common residence, hence forming the patrilineal descent group. Similarly, all uterine, that is the female member, have a same line of descent, form the matrilineal group. In both cases, the descent provided the basis of group of integration. So, then they find out that because of this descent is the basis of group integration, that when either you belong to your father's side or mother's side, and you are related to each other and you are dependent on each other because of the certain reasons. So they found that this decent group or this lineage is one of the factors responsible for the integration of the society. Features of the descent principles. Descent principles have parallel rules of post-marital residence, patri locality, right? See, as the anthropologist, the wanted to know about the understand about the about the factors responsible for the integration of this society. They studied this society, and on the basis of their ethnographic and anthropologist studies, they arrived at the understanding that the residence or the territory and the descent in the same society are the factors which are responsible for the um, integration of the society. So, feature of the descent principle. What are the features of the descent principle? And this residence or the territory or the descent forms the principles, forms the features of the descent principles. Right. So, descent principles, residence. Residence is one of the important factor for this descent principles. Decent principles have parallel rules of post marital residence. It is patrilocal. Married couple and children live in husband's community, usually found in patrilineal descent. Patrilocal is when after marriage the girl moves to the husband's father's house. It is patrilocal, that is the wife, husband, and their children live in the husband's community and usually found in patrilineal descent. Then matrilocality, when a married couple and their children live in wife's community, right? And associated with matrilineal descent. Descent rules are used to determine the parenthood, identify their ancestry, and assign people to social categories, groups, and roles on the basis of inherited status. So, first was the residence, second is the descent rule. Descent rules are used to determine the parenthood, who are the parent. They identify their ancestry because the parents have some lineage, right? So you can identify their ancestry of the, you can identify the ancestry of the children through the parents, and assign people to social categories, groups, and roles on the basis of inherited status. The decent approach emphasizes on formation of social groups or decent groups and have described these groups as exhibiting certain features. So, decent group, it emphasizes on formation of social group. Kinship is what? Why kinship? What is kinship? That is a group of a people, right? So, decent approach emphasizes on the formation of a social group. Decent groups are permanent social unit, right? It's a permanent. You cannot change it according to your will. You just inherit that your lineage or the descent. So descent group is a permanent social unit whose member claim common ancestry. The membership of a group is determined at the birth and is a lifelong membership. You cannot either adopt or leave that lineage. No, you cannot. The membership of the decent group is permanent and you get it by birth. The decent group endures over time even though membership changes. Right? Decent group functions successfully as a long-term joint property owners and economic production teams. Decent groups assumes important corporate functions such as the land ownership, political representation, mutual aid, and support. Decent group were the mechanism for maintaining political order in stateless society, right? The principle was used to trace line of inheritance and succession as a chief. In the development of theory of family and kinship, the descent theory made reference of genealogical chart that had trace ancestor between the kin. The descent principle helped in allocation of roles, responsibilities among the members of a particular group. Kinship terminology were relevant in indicating the allocation. Uses of decent approach by anthropologists. How anthropologists use that decent approach? Prominent British social anthropologist of this period, that is the Malinowski or the Redcliffe Brown or even Pritchard or Mayor Fortes, generally advocated a functional approach. The major premises of functionalism were that every aspect of a culture, no matter how seemingly disparate, that is, the kinship term, technology, food, mythology, artist, artistic motives had a substantive purpose, and that within a given culture, These diverse structures work together to maintain a group's viability. So, how this anthropologist use this decent group? The anthropologist of that time, whether it's Radcliffe Brown, Malinowski, Evan Pritchard, they are known as the functionalist, right? And the their major premises of functionalism, the right, according to them, that every aspect of the culture had a substantive purpose, and that within a given culture these diverse structure worked together to maintain a group's viability. So they are known as functionalists, and according to them, that each and every aspect of the culture plays an important role in the society, and they have a substantive purpose, and that within a given culture these diverse structure work together to maintain a group's viability. Henry Morgan, descriptive and classificatory terminology. Henry Morgan has initiated or has invented this kinship system, right? So Henry Louis Morgan, H.L. Morgan, is one of the foremost cultural anthropologist whose theory had substantial influence on sociology and anthropology. Morgan carried out a field work among the Native American people. The Ancient Society, 1877, he attempted to link evolution of kinship institution to technological changes and evolution of property forms. His pioneering work on kinship resulted in book System of Consanguinity and Affinity of Human Family. It was published in 1871. He proved an evolutionary thinking according to which kinship was defined as a social institution, identified the earlier step of societal organization. Kinship was presented as an epicenter of so-called primitive societies' social organization. Kinship was seen as a principle for differentiated simple society from complex modern society. So kinship was the principle for differentiated simple society from the complex societies. Kinship gave explanation of problem of maintenance of social order in absence of state-based organization. Right? An important element in Morgan's formulation was the distinction between classificatory and descriptive system of kinship. In classificatory system, a relative not in ego's direct line of descent or ancestry, called the collateral kins, are placed in the same terminological grouping as a lineal kin, or relative in ego's direct line of descent. Classificatory system such as the Dravidian kinship, for example, designated the father and his brother, and conversely the mother and her sister by the same term, or indicating a relationship of similarity. In many society with unilineal descent, that is the system that emphasizes descent through one parent's line but not both, ego uses one set of terms, refer as brother, sister, parallel cousins, cousins, those who genealogical ties are traced through are related parents of the same sex, as in father's brothers or mother's sister. While another set is termed as cross cousins, the offsprings of the father's sister or mother's brother. This arrangement emphasizes the fact that the cross cousin do not belong to the lineage with the ego. Ego's sibling and ego's parallel cousin thus designated a marriage thus designated marriage between their cross cousins as exogamous group. Descriptive terminology. in contrast of classificatory terminology, maintains a separation between the lineal and collateral kin. For example, mother and mother sister, although the same generation and sex, are distinguished. Radcliffe Brown, the African system of kinship and marriage. Radcliffe Brown insisted on the study of kinship system as a field of right and obligation and saw it as a part of a social structure. Kinship system should be regarded as a social relations that form a part of a broader general network for social relation called the social structure. So Radcliffe Brown insisted that kinship system is a field of rights and obligations. So kinship is obviously it's a field of rights and obligations. When you are associated with someone, you have certain rights as well as certain obligations, and saw it as a and Radcliffe Brown saw it as a part of a social structure. And kinship system should be regarded as a special social relationship, right? That form a part of a broader general network of social relation called the social structure. For Radcliffe Brown, descent is both social and biological, and hence the distinction between the pater, that is social, and biological father. He differentiated between the types of the rights. Right in personam refers to the certain right that a husband has to his wife. In the study of kinship system, Radcliffe Brown also focuses on the kinship and the kinship terminology. According to him, kinship terminology enables understand the social structure. In simple societies, kinship is basis of social organization and is associated with particular kinship term. By studying the kinship system and terminology of a society, its social structure can be understood. And he also emphasized upon the study of kinship functionality. Descent and filiation. Filiation stemmed from being legitimate child of one's parents and was normally bilateral. That is, children with pilated to both parents. That is filiation. What is filiation? That is filiation stemmed from being the legitimate child of one's parent and was normally bilateral. That is, children were filiated to both parents. Descent as dualistus was determined by the pedigree, descent from a particular ancestor. In patrilineal case, the man has a descent and filiation linked to his father's side, but only filiation on his mother's side. That in patrilineal case, man has a descent and filiation links on his father's side, right? They follow the descent or the lineage of the father's side, but only filiation of his mother's side. What is the filiation? That you are being a that it's like being a legitimate child of both the parents, right? And it is filiated from both the side. Filiation was relevant only in the domestic context, and descent was politico-jural matter, right? So this descent was important both in political and jurisdiction matter. Descent is unilateral, while whereas filiation is always bilateral. Critics of descent theory. The descent approach was dominant mode of studying the family, marriage, and kinship in early 20th century. The theory helped to comprehend the social structure of the society as neatly organized by the principle of the unilineal descent, either from the male side or female side. Descent was the basis of the political structure and the key to understanding of these societies. Much of the features of descent theory was derived from the study done by the British anthropologist in Africa. When anthropologists from the United States and other part of the world started doing the research outside the Africa, they realized that the unilineal descent was not the only mode of the group formation. The depiction of society as neatly ordered by unilineal descent into clearly bounded nested unit of different scale was quite far from everyday political reality. These anthropologists also pointed out that the descent theory only recognized sharing of blood, whereas the importance of marriage in the formation of group was neglected. Dysentery was therefore led to the differentiation between the agnatic and the affinal kid. The model given by the dysenterist was more or less normative, and personal experiences of kinship could vary considerable from the normative model, right? The inheritance, contradiction, and limitation in Descent approach to study of kinship propelled thinkers like Lewis Strauss to construct a new theory based on the exchange of women or alliance. Right? Likewise, the contemporaries Levi Strauss considered unilinear descent group as a core structure of kinship. However, he advocated the formation of alliance due to exchange of women. This theory was termed as alliance theory and was regarded as advanced to the descent. That's all for today. Thank you very much. Namaskar.